I am the reeve, and this is my tale. There once was a miller named Simpkin who lived in a trumpington at the mill overlooking a brook. On his belt he wore a long cutlass with a sharp blade. With him he carried other knives, and everyone was afraid of him. He was bald with a round face with a pug nose. He regularly stole from his clients and was arrogant. He had a wife who came from a noble family. She was well educated and as proud and perky as a magpie. No other man would flirt with her for fear that Simpkin would kill him. She was as dignified as a ditchwater and full of disdain and arrogance. The couple had 2 children. They had a 20-year-old daughter with her father's pug nose and gray eyes. She was a pretty girl, and the men in the town lusted after her. Their other children was a baby, only 6 months old. The miller had a monopoly on the wheat and malt on the surrounding land. He usually stole carefully and on the sly, but now he was an outrageous thief. 2 men from a dorm that Simpkin had a monopoly of at Cambridge came to see Simpkin's mill. Their names were John and Alan, and they were headstrong and loved to play around.
All hail Simon, by my faith. How are your fair daughter and your wife?
Alan, welcome, and John also. Say now, what brings you here?
Simon, by God, it is all a matter of need. He who has no servant must serve himself, or else he's a fool, as clerks say. I'm afraid our manciple is in danger of dying, to judge by the ache in the infected tooth in his head. And therefore I have come, along with Alan, to grind our grain and carry the flour home again. I pray you, help us get home as quickly as possible.
I shall do it, by my faith, and what will you 2 do while I have the job in hand?
By God, I'll stand right by the hopper and see how the grain goes in. You know, by my father's kin, I never yet saw how the hopper wags to and fro.
John, will you really do that? And I'll be here beneath, by my head, and see how the meal falls into the trough. That'll be my job, because, John, by my faith, I'm like you. I'm just as bad a miller as you are.
They're doing all this just to trick me. They think no man can trick them, but by golly, I'll blur their eyes for them. In spite of all their college kid cleverness, the more cute tricks they try, the more I'll steal from them. Instead of flour, I'll see that they get only bran.
Simpkin went outside and untied the horse, and the horse ran free toward the mares. The miller went inside and went about his work, while the clerks played until their grain was all ground up into flour. Eventually, John and Alan noticed the horses missing.
Help! Alas, our horse is on the loose, Alan. Come on, man, right now. Our warden's horse is on the loose.
What? Which way is he gone?
Alas, your horse went to the fen to be with the wild mares as fast as he could. A curse upon the hand that bound him so, on him who should have tied the reins better.
Alas, Alan, for Christ's pains, lay your sword down as I will mine. The horse won't escape both of us. Why didn't you put the horse in the barn?
The clerks ran off toward the horse, and when the miller knew they were gone, he gave their flour to his wife and told her to bake a cake with it.
Stay! Come back here! Stand! Down here!
Eventually, John and Alan trapped their horse in a ditch and come back to the mill tired and wet.
We are driven to contempt and scorn. Our grain is stolen. Men will say we're fools, especially the miller.
The 2 young men can't travel any farther now that it is dark, so they beg the miller for lodging and a place to lie down in exchange for their money.
If there is space such as it is, you shall have your part of it. My house is small, but you college boys can make a place of only 20 feet a full mile wide.
Since you are so merry, you deserve a merry answer. Head into town and get us some meat and drink so we can all make merry, and we'll pay you.
The miller's daughter went to town and got the food and drink for the guests. After they ate and drank, Simpkin headed to bed. His daughter's bed was in the same room as he and his wife's. Simpkin and his wife both had drank heavily. Near the foot of the bed, the miller's wife put her baby's cradle so that she could rock it easily. Simpkin, his wife, and his daughter all snored heavily, keeping Alan and John awake.
John, are you awake? I have never heard such snoring before. The miller stole our flour, and we deserve compensation.
Be careful, John. The miller is a dangerous man. If he wakes up, he would harm us both.
I don't give a fly for him.
Alan crept up and got into bed with the miller's daughter. He was so close that she could not see him in enough time to cry out, and soon after, they were one. John still lay awake.
Alas, this is a sad state of affairs. Alan has compensation for the harm done to us. He is in bed with the miller's daughter in his arms. He took a chance, and now his needs are taken care of. But I'm still laying in bed like a bag of trash. I am a fool, a weak coward. I'm going to get up and do something about this.
John crept up and moved the cradle from the end of the miller and his wife's bed to the end of his own bed. Soon after that, the wife got up to go to the bathroom. When she returned, she felt around for the cradle and didn't feel it at the end of the bed she thought was hers.
Got into the clerk's bed. bed. That would have been horrible.
She continued to feel around in the dark until she felt the cradle at the end of the bed of John. She got into bed with John. After a short while, he got up and landed eagerly on the woman. He plunged into her. The two clerks went on like this with the miller's daughter and wife until the rooster crowed in the morning.
Farewell, Mullane, sweet lady. Day has come and I can stay no longer. But wherever I go, I am your own clerk, I swear.
Now, dear love, go farewell. And before you go, I need to tell you something. Beside the mill, right behind the door, is a cake that was made from your stolen flour. God save you and keep you well, my dear lover.
And with that, she started to weep. Alan went back into bed he shared with John. He felt the cradle and thought he was at the bed of the miller and his wife. He went to the other bed where the miller actually lay and got into bed with him. He grabbed his neck and whispered into his ear.
John, you stupid pighead, wake up for Christ's sake and let me tell you about how I screwed the miller's daughter flat on her back while you laid in bed like a coward all night.
Oh yeah, you false harlot, have you really? You false traitor, you will die. How dare you degrade my daughter?
The miller grabbed Alan by the throat. Alan punched him in his nose, and they fought back and forth. The miller fell over a stone in the fight and landed on his wife in John's bed.
Help! Simpkin! The clerks are fighting and someone is on top of me!
John got up and looked for a staff from the wall. The wife got up too, and she found the staff first. She tried to hit Alan with it, but instead hit her husband on his bald head.
Help, I'm dying.
The clerks gave the miller a good beating and let him lay there to die. They took their horse and the flour and left. The proud miller was beat to death, lost the wheat he ground, and paid for every bit of the supper of Alan and John, who beat him up. His wife was screwed, and his daughter too. Such is the reward of a miller who is false. We find this proverb very true. He who does evil cannot expect good. A beguiler shall himself be beguiled.